Welcome to the Climate Pelicans Brief, a podcast bridging the gap between climate science and Louisiana frontline communities. I'm Corinne Salter.
And I'm Jill Tepizza. Join us as we disentangle environmental justice issues facing Louisiana using peer-reviewed science as well as the voices and lived experiences of community leaders.
Our goals are to uplift activist platforms and raise awareness about the many environmental puzzles in Louisiana,
while contextualizing everything through the lens of climate crisis mitigation. Welcome to another episode of Climate Pelicans Brief. Climate change and its effects have surpassed undeniability and have become more and more felt by many communities, not even just those frontline communities, although they are often leaders in climate crisis advocacy. For young people like us, the fear and stress of living on our planet under conditions not suitable or safe are ever pervasive. And under such overwhelming fear and stress, it can feel like we have little to no power against the seemingly runaway train that is climate change. If you're feeling this way, we're in the same boat with you. In fact, that's a big reason why we do this work and hope to educate people about the intersections of climate and environmental issues. We only have one planet, and we want to see meaningful action taking place, especially in a place like Louisiana that has allowed industry, especially the fossil fuel industry, the most extractive and leading sector in global warming, to reign supreme. We are all united as inhabitants of this planet, so we all have a role to play ensuring its sustainability. So today we want to talk about climate anxiety, highlight some historical student movements on campuses around the U.S., the importances of having students and young people in an active role in climate change movement.
So, as we know now, if you've been listening to our podcast or just generally in tune with the most relevant issues facing our survival today, we're dealing with a climate crisis. This crisis we're facing is the single biggest health threat facing humanity to date, according to the United Nations. And according to the same report by the UN, environmental factors take the lives of around 13 million people every year. And we can really only expect that number to grow exponentially as climate change worsens and the weather events we face get more extreme.
We're seeing that across the globe, young people between the ages of 16 to 25 have reported negative feelings related to climate change. One survey found that greater than 50% of survey takers felt sad, anxious, angry, powerless, helpless, and guilty. 75% said that they think the future is frightening, and 83% said that they think people have failed to care for the planet. And respondents generally responded negatively in regard to government response to climate change, concluding that government response has been inadequate, leaving respondents with feelings of betrayal rather than reassurance. So it's no wonder that so many young people are taking to the front lines of the climate change movement. It's us that are going to be bearing the worst of the consequences of climate change, and less so our current government officials and their old cronies.
Right. Yeah. So like a lot of people are really scared because as young people, we're the ones, like you said, that are going to be bearing the burden of this because of the inaction of the inadequate, insufficient action of our current government officials. So, it's very anxiety inducing, and it also is like a big reason why we have such a big part in this movement. So,
right. We're like the first generation where when 50 years ago when climate change was discovered and people really started to think about it, they were like, well, plan for your children, plan for the future. You don't want them to be having to deal with this. We are the first generation that is having to deal with this. So thanks, guys. Right. You did not plan.
Yeah. What happened to those plans? But with that, we are seeing a shift for the U.S. governmental response to the climate crisis, for instance, with the Inflation Reduction Act, which allocated $400 billion to clean energy. And this is the most aggressive and ambitious act addressing climate change to date in U.S. history. But even then, the fact that it's still the most aggressive and ambitious, it's still something that we need to work on, and we need to expand even more, because at this point, the U.S. really hasn't had an aggressive history against climate change. And so it's really time to buckle down and push it even further. So, but even with that being said, even with the Inflation Reduction Act, we have to be wary about the fossil fuel industry taking advantage of these allocations to only produce more oil and profit. For more on this, go listen to our episode on carbon capture and storage and how oil and gas companies plan to undercut and co-opt the Inflation Reduction Act's climate change efforts by using the money under the guise of clean energy only to produce more oil.
We won't discuss that at length in today's episode, but with climate anxiety, be wary of false or greenwash solutions created by these very companies and industry that are leaders in greenhouse gas emissions leading to climate change, and how they might take advantage of your climate anxiety to turn even more profit while not even cutting their own emissions.
Yes, very true. But we will save that rant for another episode. And trust me, we do rant. We do. But today we're here to discuss kind of the opposite end of that, not just being undercut, but our power that we have and the power that we have against the climate crisis. So academia, being a great place for this power to really find its place. It's a place of intense scientific discovery and enhanced understanding through research. Activism and grassroots organization are what we do with those discoveries and understandings we formulate through that research that we get. So we know from our privileged and educated standpoint that there are real threats to our health, safety, democracy, and rights. Our research in academia puts facts and statistics to support these understandings. Now, we should use what we learn to organize and raise awareness for others who don't have that same education or privilege of access to the information that we have. So we use our liberation to liberate others. Shout out to bell hooks.
Yeah, our liberation, like you said. We are in a space that allows us to critically engage with issues socially, politically, etc. Therefore, we have the knowledge which transforms into power to drive progression. More specifically, our power as students and young people. Let's start by looking at the rich history of students and activism. And we do mean rich.
Very rich.
Yeah, there's a lot to dig into
a
there.
Lot.
We've got a couple of good examples here. Student protests and demonstrations were integral in the civil rights movement. The Greensboro sit-in sparked a widespread student movement throughout the South, where 4 students from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical College staged a sit-in at a segregated Woolworth lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and refused to leave until they were served. This occurred on February 1st, 1960, and 4 days later, on February 5th, 300 plus students had joined into the Greensboro sit-ins and essentially halted business operations because of the sheer volume of their protest. The 4 students, Ezell Blair Jr., David Richmond, Franklin McCain, and Joseph McNeil, brought national attention to the discriminatory and racist practices that were commonplace in Southern food establishments, forcing places like Woolworth to change their segregational policies. Student contributions have also shaped our international affairs as well. The Kent State University shooting was only back in 1970 when students tried to protest the U.S.'s growing aggression in the Vietnam War, the very war that elected President Nixon and made a campaign platform to invade Cambodia 2 years later. Unfortunately, 4 students died, and even more were injured when the Ohio National Guard opened fire on protesters. This event has been regarded as sparking the first ever nationwide student strike in U.S. history, according to the Urban Institute. It also had caused more than 450 campuses across the country to close due to student demonstrations that had resulted. So these are some really powerful examples of how students can really influence the state of affairs in the U.S. and globally.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that we students really do have a lot of power. And I think that a lot of times our power gets seemingly undermined by people that basically don't want, foundations and institutions that don't want to see us ask for this change. But, social change, it's driven by sometimes radical action and progressive action that is outside of the norm of what's expected. And so, sometimes we do have to work against certain institutions because they are literally the ones that are upholding the inequality that we face.
Absolutely.
So I'm really glad that you use those examples, because I think it really speaks to the power that we have just in like 2 examples. It shows you how powerful student movements and youth-led movements can really be.
Right. Students and youth are respected in certain ways as like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like the scholars of today.
Right.
I don't know what it is exactly, but there is a certain amount of respect that if something's going on, it does get the attention of the rest of the public.
For sure. Because like you said, we're pretty much the future. Like we are the future. So we should be able to have a say in what the future looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So even today, student movements have seen success with their demands for their school's divestment from the fossil fuel industry. For instance, New York State University is the most recent to divest from fossil fuels, but more than 100 universities have committed to divestment, which is really awesome and not a small number. For instance, at Whitman, they have a campaign called Divestment Whitman. They had an oil spill action where students wore all black and laid on the steps of their academic building and lawn. It mimicked the appearance of an oil spill.
Love that.
I know, which I think is super cool. And, we talked to Cheyenne too about, being creative and like using these moments to really like be creative and, share how we really want to, what we really want to say, but like in a way that's approachable and, communicates what we're trying to say to like students that may not have the same knowledge that we have.
And it's dramatic.
Yeah.
I love
it's
the drama.
Dramatic. We love drama. We love the tea.
We love tea. I want to dress up like a seal and lay on
Oh my god!
Like an oil slick.
Yes. No, really.
It's purely theatrical.
Yeah. I love that. And another example is Fossil-Free Penn. So in April 2022, so pretty recently, they staged a 39-day encampment on the campus green to demand the University of Penn to divest from fossil fuels. So, and then following that, in October 2022, they stormed the football field right before a game and held up signs that demanded divestment. And so far, unfortunately, Yale and Penn are the only Ivy League colleges to have yet to divest. But it's important to note that this pressure has prompted official acknowledgement from Penn President and Board of Trustees, that's Liz McGill, and the board chair being Scott Bach, of the extractive and harmful contributions that fossil fuel industry has on climate change and injustice. So this can be a huge step in removing the social license that fossil fuel industry has, which is a good step toward divestment, although on its own, obviously it's not enough. But we are mentioning the fact that, you have the president of Penn and the board chair of the Board of Trustees mentioning, basically acknowledging that the fossil fuel industry is extractive and does contribute to a lot of injustice. And so the fact that they're even acknowledging that, I'm not saying that on their part that they're doing enough. They're definitely, like Liz McGill and Scott Bach are not doing enough. But the fact that they were forced to acknowledge it shows you just how powerful that type of thing can be.
Right. Forcing people in a seat of power to acknowledge something like that.
Yes.
It sparks change.
It does. Yeah. And it can be it's a great step in the right direction.
So they're well on their way. They're going to get there.
Yes. Go Penn. We believe in you.
Go Yale.
Yes. Y'all can do it. But yeah, in Fossil, another group, sparked occupations between September and December 2022, more than 50 schools and universities around the world. Where they basically #end fossil were able to occupy 75 universities and schools in May 2023, which was really awesome. So the fact that they're able to kind of like occupy and create these movements around different campuses just shows you again like how powerful university movements can really be. And so if there's one thing that we're really seeing a theme of, it's that we have serious power and visibility. For instance, LSU is very well known. I mean, look at the turnout at the games and the national attention that our sports programs get. I mean, literally Cardi B mentioned LSU in a song. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Which one?
Oh gosh.
Okay,
I'm going to sound like a fake Cardi fan if you
No. Oh no. I'll just listen to the whole album and figure it out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, but she says
We'll link it in the show.
Yeah, okay, okay. I just sound like such a fake fan, but I love Cardi B, okay?
We love her.
Yes.
Especially if she mentioned
She mentioned LSU. I mean, look at like the national attention that we're literally getting. So people know what LSU is. People know who we are, and we have the power needed to stand at the front lines for the climate movement and share that power with grassroots organizations who are fighting for the same climate justice.
So clearly we have this power to force universities and government to really address this wide range of concerns that we have. And we have power in numbers too.
Yeah.
On campuses, we engage with different classes, and our fellow students are often in different disciplines. For example, with the climate movement, we can engage with students that are in political or administrative majors to gain perspective on policy change toward climate justice. We can engage with natural and physical science majors like us to understand the science behind climate injustice and develop more socially engaged scientific research geared toward climate justice. Communication majors too. We can learn a lot from them on how to engage with diverse audiences to build capacity and communicate scientific issues, because scientists, like us, don't always communicate the most clearly. Even engineering students who are gearing up for jobs in industry, they can lead the charge in demanding justice within the workplace, which in turn can translate to climate justice when employees in these fields are given the proper workplace protection and tools to prevent things like oil spills and industrial explosions. And they can bring climate justice centered methods to industry, which heaven knows we all need.
Right.
So all of which would change industry standards from the inside out. And these are just to name a few of academic disciplines that can contribute. The possibilities are truly endless when it comes to who can engage in the climate movement. We are all impacted by climate change, and we can all stand to learn something from each other and grow our movement and enact real justice.
Yeah, I really love that, because those are just like a few examples. Like literally, right. You can be creative, and like, I mean, the thing is that like you said, everybody's impacted by climate change. So we all have a voice. We all have a perspective to contribute to this, and we all have our power to be shared with the climate movement to enact real change, like you said.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a student to know
right.
that like you have a little, you might not be able to tackle the whole problem by yourself. Nobody can, but like you can contribute something.
Yeah.
You can use your profession or your perspective or something to like, just like, you know, add your 2 cents to the movement.
Yeah.
But like on college campuses around the US and around the world, like we really do have this very unique situation where we're with people who are learning and in an environment that fosters like intellectual exploration and getting involved in these types of things. So just like think about what your major is and what really sparks your interest in things and how you might be able to add your own 2 cents to our movement.
Yeah. And just like honestly have a conversation. Like, because climate justice and just justice in general is so intersectional, like just have a conversation with somebody that, you know, maybe isn't even in your major, but like you don't know the ways in which you could both contribute to a meaningful conversation towards climate justice. So that's all just to say that we have literally an access to these, like this interdisciplinary network of each other that can just all be used to build our movement.
Totally.
Yeah. So, and another thing too, our movements can grow even greater with social media. We can organize easier with it. We can spread our message and uplift concerns. For instance, with the Black Lives Matter movement, it was bolstered heavily during 2020 by the fact that we were all perpetually online. Well, at least I was. I'm not going to lie. I was online a lot, especially during.
We were all pretty terrified and
quarantine.
Like with our ear to the door being like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
Right, exactly. And we could easily share experiences, resources, and information on easily accessible platforms through social media. And that's the thing, is that we're kind of talking about, like, you know, with Climate Pelicans, one of the things is that we're trying to bridge academia and frontline communities that need our resources and information and our power. And that's the thing, is that social media is accessible to everyone, you know, for better or for worse sometimes, but anybody can have a social media account. And that can be such an easy and like accessible way for people to share resources and to uplift each other through that platform, because, you know, everybody can get in it. Everybody can get on it. So, and we can also get galvanized participation through that social media because it's immersive, relatable, and easily shared. Social media can also help us overcome the lack of access to information that I just mentioned and resources that academia can create because it's accessible to everyone. So a lot of times, our academic journals and the things that we read are behind paywalls, unfortunately.
Gross.
Yeah, pretty frustrating, pretty sad. I don't love it, but that's just the state that we're in right now. And social media is a great way to overcome that. Obviously, if it's coming from the right sources and, it's credible, we can share a lot of this information with people through social media and really educate people who don't have that access just on a regular day, don't have an institution backing them up and giving them access to things through JSTOR, so.
Right. Yeah. There's good and the bad with the social media,
right.
But it's good to latch on to some of the positive things that it can provide our movement.
It's all about intentions.
Yes.
Yeah. And also too, social media can spark dissent, which, we talk about with Cheyenne as well. Like, even with, things like our divestment march, that we had last November, social media, people will get on and be like, I don't like this. I didn't want to see y'all doing this. I don't understand why you're doing it. That is the beginning of a conversation. And that is the beginning of the bridge that we're trying to build. And dissent is really important to creating equitable and well-rounded movements because we need to hear from people that maybe don't always agree with everything because they might give us a new perspective that we maybe hadn't considered if we just keep our ears closed off to people that don't agree with us all the time.
Right, absolutely. And student and youth-led movements are evidently really integral to progressive change. With the climate change movement, we find so many creative and active ways to expel climate anxiety and move our systems in new directions for justice. But we also must keep in mind that there are really communities surrounding us that have been fighting for this justice for many generations. Like, this is not a new thing. In Louisiana, for instance, climate and environmental justice is not a new fight for Black communities. Yeah. If we want to enact meaningful, justice-focused change, we have to keep frontline communities and their goals central. They're hit hardest first. They are hit hardest and also the most disempowered traditionally. As weather events become more intense, these communities, that is the frontline communities in Louisiana and Black communities in particular, are going to be experiencing the brunt of increased intensity of storms on top of not having the support needed to bounce back or remove themselves from these zones. For more on this, you can listen to our third episode on environmental justice. So the bottom line is that climate change is going to affect us all going forward, but it's going to disproportionately impact already disempowered communities, especially in states with such a heavily racialized history like Louisiana. And we cannot disconsider these communities in our movement. We cannot leave them behind in our movement because if we do, then what are we even doing this for?
Right. Like, what is the point?
Yeah. In fact, they should be in the front. They should be leading it. We should take their goals and hold them up and amplify them.
Yeah, give them that platform that we have as students because we clearly do, just based on the few examples that we provided. We have power and we can share that with them because, they need that institutional power too. So
yeah, that's another way if we have institutional power.
Yeah.
Share
it. So yeah, we really need to keep our ear to the ground of the injustices happening literally right around us and be prepared to externalize our climate anxieties. So that means staying active and involved politically and socially, for instance, with grassroots climate and environmental justice organizations. And at the university too, LSU Climate Pelicans, our organization, our approach involves community engagement and divestment campaigns. So our first prong to our approach is our divestment campaign, where we try to encourage the LSU Foundation to divest from the fossil fuel industries and anti-climate lobbyists and use that money that they divest to reinvest in carbon-free energy. And our second prong to that approach is our community engagement campaign, where we try to build capacity for students and frontline communities to engage in climate, environment, and social justice efforts through meaningful partnerships and sharing sharing of resources. So this means we attend community events, host rallies and marches, lobby legislators, and meet with LSU officials to discuss divestment from the fossil fuel industry.
So that's our two-pronged approach. That's where we're at right now.
Yes.
But if you're not part of LSU Climate Pelicans, you don't have them, or you're doing other things, go you.
Or not at LSU at all.
So many other people in the world who are not at LSU. There are so many other ways that you can get involved. We've got a couple of examples here. 1, voting.
Yes.
If you're 18 and older, everybody, y'all, please vote. We have an important election for our next governor in Louisiana coming up soon.
Yes, that is very important.
Please, so important. Early voting is September 30th through October 7th. The primary election is on October 14th, and the general election is on November 17th. Mark your calendars.
Yes,
everybody whip out a pen. Just like rewind 10 seconds, write all of that down.
Put it in your phone.
Put it in your phone. Or whatever sort of calendar you use.
Exactly.
Do that. Make sure you're registered to vote in your city in Louisiana and know where your polling place is.
Yes.
And stay up to date on what the candidates' platforms are and which ones are climate friendly and the ones who are not. I would recommend following at Louisiana Bra. That would be Louisiana, the state, H. Okay.
It's like Louisiana. It's Louisiana Bra. So yeah.
Louisiana Bra, I think is how it's supposed to be. I don't even need to spell it out. I'm going to try it again. Okay. It's at Louisiana HBRAH.
Yes.
On Instagram, as they provide breakdowns of candidates in an engaging and easy to understand way. But also, hopefully you've been keeping up with the debates or at least the highlights. I will say it's interesting to refuse to show up to multiple debates, yet still expect to win. That's not like showing up to an interview and still expecting the job.
Right.
Cough, cough. Jeff Landry.
Literally.
Who do you think you are?
Like, how do you, the audacity just to be like, I'm just not going to show up to the interview, but I still hope I get the job. Like,
he's not hoping, he's expecting to get the job. He's like, I am so important
right,
that I don't have time to be part of this campaign, this conversation, this public engagement.
I just already have it guaranteed to me.
Yeah. And let's be honest, I'm not going to say anything.
No.
I'm not going to predict the outcome because
we
can all be... No, I'm not manifesting that at all. But I just think it's a very interesting energy because if you're approaching your campaign in a lackadaisical way, what do you think he's going to do when he's in office? Do you think he's going to listen to the public? Do you think that he's going to take your concerns seriously?
Because he can't even show up to the debates, which are public concerns.
Thank you. Yes. Do you expect someone who's going to engage with the public if he's literally from out the gate not engaging with the public?
Right.
So we won't harp on that anymore because I think we got our point across. But another way of engaging, so vote. That's you got to do it. If you're over 18, you got to do it. Another way of engaging, one that's often overlooked and is that a lot of these industries setting up in Louisiana need operating permits to spew their emissions. Yes. Little known fact, they can't just do it. Right. Although it seems that way.
It may seem that way.
So they receive these permits through our state authority, Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, or LDEQ. As the public would be harmed by their industry emissions, we have a say in if these industry companies should receive their permits to operate or not. And we have the right to be notified of those companies seeking permits, and we can submit comments to say that they shouldn't have that permit or to voice our concerns about safety and health. And you can receive these notices via email by signing up at
very long length.
That is a honker. And we will just we're going to link that in the show notes, but it's from the DEQ page. So take a look for that. And for our non-LSU listeners, if you're currently attending a university, check and see if they are invested in fossil fuel companies. One way you can figure this out is by combining your school's name with financial language and search terms such as portfolio endowment, investments, private equity fund, ETF, and so on. So just Google that plus your school's name. For example, LSU portfolio endowment will probably bring something up. I'm not sure exactly what, but probably nothing because they're so secretive and have literally no transparency. But you can usually find your school's investments in this way, especially if it's a public entity. Another way you can do this if your school is a public university it is considered not for profit, and therefore you can use ProPublica's Nonprofit Explorer search engine to see your school's tax returns and to look into their investments in that way. And that website to go to, which we'll also link, is projects.propublica.org/nonprofits. After you figure that out, if your school is invested to fossil fuels, start a conversation. Or if they have their investment, the amount that's invested on ProPublica, but they don't have the breakdown of the sectors, you might have to ask for it. So start a conversation with your school's administration. We've got another episode about divestment that you can listen to if you want like a full breakdown of how to go about doing that. You can also write a letter to the editor for your school's newspaper, meet with your school's board of trustees to discuss why they think it's appropriate to invest in such an extractive industry that's leading our planet down a dangerous path. You can also organize a march or just chat with other students and raise awareness about where their money's going. Cheyenne does that a lot.
Yes.
The chatting with students, so important.
So
Fabulous. Not only are we paying into these institutions every single semester, lots of money. Or in our case, grad students, they're giving most of it back, but that varies.
Very little.
That's
another conversation.
That's another conversation. But not only are we paying into them every single semester, but we are also earning them money by virtue of attendance and sharing our skills. And also prestige is important to universities, some more than others. But like your going there is like you're showing up, you're being a shining star, you're rocking your classes, you're doing everything that you can. You are earning them reputation, you are earning them money by attending. You're an asset to your school. You're not just
participant.
You're
not just a number, like you're not just a demographic, you're part of the system. Like you're literally the most integral part of the institution. So don't think that you don't have power, because literally what would they do if they had no students? It wouldn't be a university.
It would be like an empty library, which is really, really sad. So to wrap up, we have every right to speak up or against where money is being invested in our universities.
Exactly. Yeah. We have every right. I love that you say that. And right now we are at a very pivotal point in our lives. We have our youth, we have our voices, and our voices need to be louder than ever to fight the climate crisis. We are the ones that are going to bear the burden of the unsustainable choices made by our aging government officials and previous generations. So if we want to continue to enjoy this planet and ensure that the next generations of students and young people don't have it even worse, we need to stand up now. And if we've seen one thing, it's that this fight is winnable. It is. Just like the many fights for equality and change in the past, we have a place in this movement and we can create meaningful change today. But it does have to start today. And it should have happened yesterday, but we still have today. So let's act today to ensure tomorrow.
Love that. So we usually wrap up our episode with our calls to action. But this whole episode has really been a call to action. And we hope that you felt that way. We've tried to be specific about some ideas that you can do. And we have the power and we need to use it right now. We're acting today. Anyways, you can sign up to become a Climate Pelican if you're a fan.
Yes.
If you want to be part of our organization.
If you want to be a part of the movement.
Yeah, join us if you're at LSU or you're a Baton Rouge local or Louisiana local.
You don't even have to be an LSU student. Like if you're just interested.
Yeah, become a Pelican. Check out our link tree for how to connect with us. Sign our petition to get LSU to divest and tell your friends about it.
Yes.
Show up to our rally. We are going to have that rally in November. We'll let you know. Connect with our socials so that you can stay up to date on when that rally in March is going to be. But show up to our rally. We are really more powerful in numbers. And just the sheer volume alone can make a statement to LSU and other university students that we need change now. So as always, our links will be in the show notes for all the stuff that we brought up throughout this episode.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking this dive with us.
Yes, thank y'all.
Have a great week.